Good evening, everyone, and we are back again. Now we're finally out of the Palace Shield cricket season for a celebratory Up the Dale podcast. Joining me tonight are two members of the second team. I won't call it any more than that until we discuss things shortly. Usual co-host David McGuire, good evening.
Evening, Mr. Harvey. How are we?
I'm very well. And the man who will forever be known on this podcast as the International, Mr. Elliot Tailforth. Good evening.
Evening, Neil. Evening, David.
Evening, Elliot. I feel I should call you sir, given your previous revelations of being in Wisden on the ICC front page. You know, I feel like you should have some kind of honorary title.
I agree.
The pro. Anyway,
Pro.
enough of that. Bigging his ego up any more than we already have done. We're going to move on, as we always do, with news and discussion. I think is probably the best way to describe it. We'll start off with, as we have been doing for the past few weeks, the Walton-le-Dale Brig and Barrel Fantasy Cricket League, an internal club fantasy league where everybody picks a team from all the players within the club across the three teams. And we reached our climax on Saturday after the second 11 final. And it was between about 3 or 4 at the top of the table. Amy, Harry, Dom, Jake, I think it was. And no real shocks, really. Amy carried on as he had been doing these last few weeks and topped the table. I think he topped it by about 200 points in the end. It was a fairly convincing victory from Harry in second place, and I think Dom was in third. So well done to Amy for winning. Oh, you were fourth, were you? Right, okay, yeah. Well, I've got to say, Ellie, you did have a pretty meteoric rise over the past few weeks.
Well, let's be honest. Joining the club this year, not really knowing anyone, I think fourth place is creditable.
Fair enough. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. It was a bold advance. But yeah, we'll again. Thanks to Brig and Barrel for sponsoring, and because they sponsored, they're giving a prize of a selection of beers to the winner. Unfortunately for Ernie, he's in Dubai. Don't think Brig and Barrel deliver that far. So, second place, Harry Bates, actually is a winner. So, well done, Harry. Ernie didn't seem overly happy about it, but I think he understands the logistics involved, or lack of. So Harry will be going home with the Brig and Barrel sponsored prize, and I think he'll be absolutely delighted about that. So once again, big thanks to Brig and Barrel. It's been as we've discussed over the weeks, it's been a fun experience. I think we've all between us gents, we've all had a giggle about it, and we've all sort of toyed with the ideas of who to take out and who to bring in, and it's been. We've said it many times, Dave. It's been a nice little pleasant relief from the rigours of everyday life, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you say it's been enjoyable. Mine, as my team Slipless in Settle slipped down the leagues every week, and then in the final week, forgetting to change my team and having it more than half full of players who weren't actually playing over the weekend. Yeah, it started well for my team, and obviously I was really into it then. And as we slipped down the standings, frustration and resignation took hold. But yeah, as you say, it's been a bit of fun to keep everyone going.
We have that discussion. Go on, Elliot.
So I had Harvey Senior and Shorik in my team this weekend, so mega negative points this weekend for me. So I did well to do what I did.
Yeah, that's been a bit of a difficulty for me as well. I mean, picking yourself puts a lot of pressure on, but it put a lot of pressure on the other players in my team picking myself. So yeah, it was never going to be an ideal scenario for me. But I did drag myself up to mid-table obscurity in the last couple of weeks, so I'll take that. I'll absolutely take mid-table. It's not a problem for me. But yeah, really good activity. We'll definitely be doing it again next year. Hopefully get everybody involved and get a few more in. But I think we ended up having 19 this year, which is probably the biggest we've done, I think. So hopefully have more next year, and it'll be a good event next year as well. So
of course,
go on.
Sorry, Neil. Of course, we do have the Fantasy Football League.
We do now have the Fantasy Football League. We do.
Where I'm currently languishing a firm bottom.
Well, it's funny you say that, because me and Dave were talking about this last week, and And again, we were extolling the sort of steady basis of not getting off to a quick start, Dave. It's more of a marathon than a sprint.
Well, some of us have treated it like a 100-meter dash and have leapt to the top of the standings already after 2 weeks and intend to stay there. But yeah, I think I need Messrs Calvert-Lewin and De Bruyne to help me out every week. I think from now till spring.
Yeah, I think I've slipped from third to fourth, so I think that's the start of a slide. So yeah, I'll have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, the Premier League Fantasy League is now well up and running. We'll try and provide updates on that, and yeah, I think that'll keep us going over the winter periods with a bit of banter flying backwards and forwards. But yeah, I think Mac's done well. I think Mick Berry's also doing well at the moment in that. So, but as Dave says, we're at the very early stages, so plenty of time to go in that. We'll see how that pans out.
It's a pity there isn't a championship fantasy football league, because I think Tyrese Dolan might have proven a very cheap and special signing. What do you think, Dave?
Sorry, you're breaking up there, Elliot. I didn't quite hear.
See, this is where I love to not fall into this Preston North End Blackburn banter. You know, I can stay well out of it, and it doesn't bother me. But yeah, do you know there was actually a Championship Fantasy League a couple of years ago? My brother-in-law got me involved with it, and it was quite good actually. It made a change from picking Premier League players all the time, but I did equally bad in that, to be quite honest. So yeah, try and forget about that. But yeah, so all up and running with that. Plenty going on in the background, so it's good for the club at this moment in time. Keeps the activity going. We'll move on to performance of the month for September. Albeit we're not out of September yet. Obviously, that's it for us matches wise. So performance wise, there ain't going to be any more. So we did the nominees last week, and God, there was a lot of them. So again, great from our point of view that there was plenty of 4+ wickets and plenty of 50 pluses to go around. Plenty of nominees, and like the player performance of the month for August, though, we had a runaway winner, and I closed the voting tonight. And the runaway winner was Anis Vahaluwala for his 81 not out in Saturday's final. We'll come more onto that shortly, as I'm sure you'll understand. Second place was Harry Bates with his 5 for 34 for the first at Standish in their third place playoff match. And third place was Gareth Winstanley, the leg end of the first, with 75 not out in that very same third place playoff. So well done to all those three. Well done to Anis for winning it. And he will now go forward to the performance of the season, which will be the three candidates from the 3 months, July, August and September that we played. August being Harry Bates again for his 4 wickets, I believe, versus New Longton, I think. Then we've got in August was Ryan Wells for his 124 not out. And then Anis Vahaluwala for his 81 not out, just gone in September. So those three will go into a vote. And hopefully we'll have a performance of the season at the end of it. So it's something we're going to carry on with for next year. Hopefully we'll be able to get it sponsored. We tried to get it done this year. Unfortunately, it didn't fall through just as well as we had liked. And we were talking about doing a performance of the week. But I think performance of the month, gents, it's something that, again, it's like the Fantasy League. It's just something to break it up. And a little bit of an incentive for people to strive to get those performances. I don't know who wants to pick that one up. One of you take that away. I think it just adds that little bit something extra, doesn't it? Thanks. Cheers.
Yeah, I suppose it does. For those who are sort of, contributing week in, week out, it provides a little something to keep the competitive juices flowing. Sadly, not managed to make any sort of contribution myself this season to even get within a sniff of a nomination for one of the awards. But yeah, I'm sure those who have been voted by the people as winners will be pleased with their efforts, and yeah, it's good recognition, I suppose, for those top performances in the season. I think, like you say, next year if we get a prolonged season and more games being played, might be more opportunities for other members of the club, particularly the third team, once they get some more regular Saturday cricket, to to put the hand up and put some performances in as well.
We'll
Yeah.
be back next year, you and me, Dave, don't you worry. We'll be back challenging.
I'm sure.
But yeah, I agree with that. Just that little bit of competition, fun competition within the club doesn't do anyone any harm. It gives people that little bit of extra incentive. It's a good thing. Let's continue.
Yeah, well, as I say, and you know, I only have to say to you two, it only takes one performance. That's all it is. It only takes one performance, and you get nominated. And if you get nominated, you can be voted for. So, yeah, I think, you know, there were some third team performers this year. I would say it wasn't just first and second team. But as I say, I think that, you know, it's not going to be. It's never been based on ability. You know, and I'll open it. I said it to you guys in a little bit in jest, but it just does take that one performance. And you know, we could have a junior performing really well in the third team, and you know, I'm sure people will take that into consideration. So yeah, so hopefully next year, as Dave says, we get a prolonged season, which gives us more months, more performances, and that can go towards it. And hopefully, if somebody's watching this and decides they want to sponsor Performance of the Month going forward, you'll get your name mentioned all over the website and all over social media, at least on a monthly basis, and probably more than that. So please get in touch if anybody wants to sponsor that moving forward. So we'll let you know about this performance of the season over the next couple of weeks, and we'll get the voting up for that. We're going to move on now. That's a news aspect of it. We're going to go into a little discussion now. It's not going to be a prolonged one because, well, we ain't got time really, but we're just going to have a discussion about format of cricket. And obviously, during this shortened season, there were certain restrictions put into place, which meant that there was a change of format slightly, not massively, but slightly. And the major things for the Palace Shield Northern League was that it was reduced to 40 overs. And it was basically cut rules. So 40 overs, 8 overs limit per bowler, fielding circles, free hits for any no ball. The major things, guys, wasn't there? Nothing else that I'm missing out on there.
Early start. 1 o'clock
Earlier
start.
start, of
rather than
course. Sorry,
1:30.
yes, that was one of the biggies. 1
Yeah.
p.m. start for most weeks. Half 12 start for the last game of the season. So I'm going to open it up. Elliot, you go first. I'm going to make the decision so you can not fumble over each other. Which of those key points in the format do you think's worked best, or do you think as a whole format it's worked really well?
In terms of getting cricket played, I think it worked. It worked well. I suspect that certain aspects, like the fielding restrictions, for example, is here to stay, because I think that's something that the Palace Shield would be looking to bring in across all the divisions. It's been in the top 3 divisions, hasn't it, for the last 3 seasons, if I remember rightly. I think the intention was always to try and bring it in across the divisions. So I think the excuse was there to do it. I think that's where it's to stay. Every year there's discussions about the actual format in terms of number of overs. Personally, I still prefer 45 overs. I know it's only an extra 5 overs, but it does seem to make a difference. And a 90 over match, as opposed to 40 overs aside. And just to explain, that means that if you bowl a side out and there are overs to stay, you get those overs. I prefer that format. I think it adds a level of nuance to the game that I enjoy. So I wouldn't like to see a permanent reduction to 40 overs aside. The early starts, it was strange on Saturday actually. We played 75 and a half of the 80 overs planned, and yet we were still finished for about 5:30, I think.
Yeah.
It just means I have to make. I can't tell Mrs. that though, because then, you know, how do we sneak off to the pub for a couple of pints afterwards?
This is always the problem.
Well, indeed. But yeah, I mean, so you know, the last thing you want is finishing at 7:30 as the sun's going down beyond the hills. So I don't mind that earlier start. I can see how it will affect a significant number of people who might work on Saturday mornings, and certainly 12:30 starts when you've got to be at the ground realistically an hour before, particularly if you're away. I can see that might cause issues, but I have no real views on that. The no ball rules, yeah, it's interesting. I'm not convinced it would be a good thing to bring it in at all levels, because at your lower levels, your development levels, you risk it affecting confidence of the younger players, who are prone to ball no balls. And particularly the West Eye ones. I mean, the idea that kids get withdrawn after bowling two above West Eye balls doesn't sit comfortably with me at all. So, yeah, I'm not sure about that one. Rolling on, I mean, the format worked well this year, didn't it? And it's been to the purpose in a full league season. Yeah, I can see the benefit of some of the provisions, but not. I wouldn't be in favour of all of them being rolled over.
Dave, any response to that?
Yeah, I was thinking about it over the weekend, just reflecting on the season as a whole, and I would probably go a bit further and say I would like to see a version of the format we played this year, because I think it's worked so well. I would like to see that replicated next year. I think, personally speaking, I find a 22 league campaign can be a little bit tiring. I think you can get a bit of fatigue in the back end of the season, particularly as I've been known to have maybe not a great season form-wise, not particularly doing much. It can feel a little bit of a grind getting through those last 4 or 5 games. You might be sort of thinking, ticking them off mentally in your head. So I would like to see something like maybe if you have a larger group stage, if you will, maybe up to a group of 12 where you play everybody once, and then you have knockout matches after that for most, if not all teams. I think it would reduce the number of games played, which I think probably would be a good thing. I think 22 consecutive Saturdays at the best time of the year is quite demanding on people, on family time, etc., etc. As we've said with this year, there would be something on the games being played. It would have that almost that that cup element we've had this year that I think everybody has really enjoyed, and I think it would just freshen things up again. In terms of the format, like Elliot was going through, I would absolutely stay at 40 overs. I like that. It felt, even though it was, as Elliot said, only 5 overs less per side than usual, it just felt so much quicker. And I really think that, combined with the starting time being brought forward as well, is absolutely brilliant. The key thing is it allows people time and the opportunity to do things with their Saturday evenings, which you've never been able to do in previous years, because you just simply don't know what time you're likely to finish. You can't make plans to go out for a meal or anything like that in an evening, because you don't know, especially if you're travelling back from the north of the county, from Torresholme or Lancaster, or even further now if you're in one of the higher leagues. You simply don't know what time you'll be getting back, so it gives people their Saturday evenings back. Fielding circles, I don't mind. I wouldn't be opposed to those being brought in. We've seen plenty of games where we've been chasing with the bat and the opposition put every single fielder on the boundary. If it stops things like that, then great. And then the no ball rule, I would like to see that brought in with maybe the proviso that a bowler, say under the age of 14 or under 16, isn't taken off. They'll still be, sanctioned with a no ball, if you like. But maybe if they had slightly more leeway, for example, it's not automatic 2 no balls and you're off, maybe slightly more than that, or they're not taken off at all. So maybe a little bit more flexibility that way. But I think something along the lines of this year, next year, with those rule changes, I think it's just been a complete breath of fresh air to the league and the way the games have been played.
Interesting. So like a hybrid, basically, you're looking at then. So a hybrid between what we've done this year and a normal league season. Interesting.
Yeah, I just think it just provides that, you have that sort of a league structure, if you will, but maybe expand it a bit, but then maintaining that sort of do or die knockout match in the second half of the season as well. I think it probably gives you the best of both worlds then.
Like a playoff structure at the end.
Yeah, pretty much something like, you could do that, as you say, if you had like a 12-team league, you could play everybody once and then you end up with first against 12th, second against 11th, etc., etc. Perhaps that's just the best of both worlds, really. It gives you people opportunity to play quite a few games, and then that sort of, as I said, that knockout.
Interesting. Well, I mean, my own views were that I'll pull out more things from the format. 40 overs, I am a bit of a traditionalist, and I'm a bit like Elliot. 45 for me, that was slightly longer. Does feel like proper cricket. And I think if you were doing a league structure, I'd probably revert back to that. I mean, the big thing for me is start time. I completely echo what Dave says in terms of earlier start. And I was saying to the umpires on Saturday, number of times we've finished games, like Elliot said about, finishing at 5:30 on Saturday. Number of times I've got in the car and it's like 6 o'clock. Brilliant. We can actually have some food after a game, as you said, Dave. Number of times previous seasons, you get back to the pub after a game and it's 7:30, 8 o'clock, and you've not eaten since lunchtime maybe, and you haven't got any time to get any decent food down you. It's it's not ideal, but this year it's felt like your Saturday evening's your own. You can go to the pub, you can still have time for something to eat, still have time to go and do something afterwards. I think early start time is the big key thing for me.
One other thing that I would also mention is I would do away with the tea interval as well. I just have a 10-minute turnaround. I don't think anybody has missed that this year with having to bring your own food, essentially. I've not heard anybody say, I've really missed having that half an hour to throw some pizza and scones down.
That's a really good point, actually, Dave. And I do wonder, I was thinking that on Saturday, actually, I do wonder how, not just the Palace Shield, but leagues around the country and how we're going to approach this.
Yeah.
There may be some clubs who feel that that's an income stream that they'll lose, but do teas really make clubs any money? And is it not simply easier to say to folk, bring your own teas? I remember when I used to play over in Sheffield at Hallam, club you'll know well, Neil, we used to have a Sunday friendly team. I remember every year we would play at Staveley.
Oh, yeah.
Over in Derbyshire, was it?
Staveley
in Derbyshire, on the border. And I remember the fixture list always said Staveley brackets no teas, because there were never any teas provided at Staveley, and a lovely little ground actually. Can't remember why we never had teas, but yeah, I mean, I don't think that's been something we've missed. I think the old £3 meal deal is the future of cricket teas, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a good point actually. It's something that I know we've discussed a couple of times, but it's not something we initially missed off what we were discussing here. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'm the same. I mean, it's very rare I have a tea in a normal season, if I'm being quite honest. So from my point of view, not a problem. I just think the traditionalists will win that over and teas will come back. But I know where you're coming from, 100%. As I say, again, it's personal taste, and I just think there'll be too many people who do prefer that break and do prefer a tea. I suppose it's dependent on how good your club teas are as well, doesn't it? Let's be honest. So we'll wait and see on that one. But whilst I understand your thoughts, I think the traditionalists will want to see that return, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I mean, for me, a little bit of a hybrid. I don't know if I go to your extent, Dave. I think there will be a cup. We'll go back to a cup format and a league format, two separate items. I think a hybrid of our previous league situation and tidbits like earlier start time, for example, like potentially more bowler restrictions. So where we've had 8 overs per bowler this time, will they go to, for those that don't know, in the Palace Shield, not in the Northern League, but in the Palace Shield, previous seasons it was a max of 15 and then anybody else can bowl 12. I think it may go, certainly in the lower divisions, I don't know about the higher divisions, they may just go to 9 overs per bowler and maybe revert back to 45. I certainly wouldn't be averse to that. I've actually, as a captain, enjoyed having to maybe juggle the bowlers a little bit more this year, rather than just saying, well, they've got loads of overs left. Not a problem. If we need to, we just bring you back on happy days. Not a problem. I think as a captain, I've actually enjoyed trying to juggle the bowlers and trying to work out who's got what left. I think, it's always fun in a cup scenario, but we've had to bring it into a league scenario this year. So, something like that, I think, would be what I would look to see brought in. Fielding circles, free hits, take them or leave them from my point of view. Fielding circles, I agree with the principle, and I would like to see them stay, in all honesty. The free hit scenario, I don't think we've missed it previous seasons, so, do we really need to take it forward? It's been a fun element, but...
Some of us need it for run scoring.
Well, yeah, okay, so I did get some of my runs from free hits, as did you this year, so yeah, but no, take it or leave it for me, but I think the point we're all trying to make here is the format that the league did, and we've mentioned this on Saturday, the league have done a sterling job. The format between the Northern League and the Palace Shield has been superb. Really suited what we had to cope with this year and how the league was put forward. So perfect format and worked really well. It'll just be really interesting to see what elements of it are taken forward into next year. So a case of watch this space, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of things put forward over the winter in terms of how that's going to pan out. So yeah, thanks for that discussion, chaps. Nice one to get out of the way. We knew it was coming because we've been talking about it plenty ourselves. So yeah, so that's news and league format discussion had. We're now going to move on to, as we usually do, match review, and it's a biggie. For those that watched last week's podcast, me and Dave discussed our second 11 were the only team playing this Saturday, and it was our cup final, the level 4 of the Northern League Palace Shield, and it was the Colin Dorber Trophy, played for level 4 teams, and we won it. We only bloody won it. We were playing South Shore Seconds, a team we know very well. We thought it'd be a close game. It was an evenly matched game. I think that's the best way of describing it. It was two very evenly matched teams, and ultimately turned on a good fielding performance and a good bowling performance by us, and then a superb batting performance by a couple of individuals in our reply. So it was always going to be a match that, whilst we were confident, chaps, I don't think we ultimately, whereas some of the previous matches, our confidence was well founded and we thought we were going to win the games. Personally speaking, I was really unsure how the outcome was going to pan out. I knew if we played well, we'd have a damn good chance because of how well we have been playing. But I wasn't 100% certain. How were you two guys feeling going into the game?
Based on my knowledge of South Shore, I did have us as underdogs, to be quite honest, because I know they're a powerful batting side, which was why when the discussion was had earlier last week, I think it was, about venue, I was quite happy to, in some respects, to be playing at home, because I think we do have some advantage playing at home. It would have been nice to play to neutral ground, wouldn't it? And it would have perhaps had a little bit more feel of occasion about it, not to diminish what happened on Saturday at all. It was a really good day. But yeah, I had as a slight underdogs, knowing how strong a side South Shore are. And I suspected that they were probably the strongest team within that L4 group.
Yeah.
Of course, followed by Dale, of course, but they were my favourites.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I was very sorry, David. I was very surprised about how the game panned out, but we'll come on to that shortly.
Dave, yourself?
Yeah, I'll probably agree with what Elliot said to a certain degree. I think I felt it would have been the toughest match, obviously, given it was a final. But I think it was going to be the closest game that we would have played in the whole competition. And that's based on purely from the fact that South Shore came down from a division higher in 2019, obviously, playing at a higher standard in previous seasons, and also from our prior games against South Shore, where we have won some against them, but we've also lost some as well, and that sort of memory of them being a very tough team to beat. We know quite a few of the players who turn in year in, year out for them. And I think, as well as Elliot said, I think probably the venue being at the Rec as well probably helped. We would have a good idea of how it played, and those of us who were down during the week before the game helping with the groundwork could see what sort of pitch was being prepared and how the outfield was running and things like that. So I sort of, I wasn't really sure. I was probably, unfortunately, to sit on the fence. I could have probably called it either way quite easy. I think it was very much a 50-50 matchup.
Yeah, completely agree. And so you'll not be surprised, those who watch this podcast regularly, to know that I lost the toss.
How many is that? One out of the season?
One out of the season, yeah.
Out of how many games?
Enough.
About 9
it's
games,
poor, isn't it? Let's be honest, it's just a poor record all round. So, lost the toss again. However, we discussed before I went out for the toss, it looked a really good deck, and the groundwork that Mick and a few of us had put in during the week, the ground was looking superb, and the pitch was looking the best it's looked pretty much all season. However, we all had this little inkling, end of season, yes, it looks good, how is it going to play? And we just felt that bowling and fielding had been probably our strongest suit all season. Although we batted well, batting had probably got better as the season's gone on. But we just felt that if we could put them on the back foot early, get a few wickets and restrict them, that would probably be our best way of winning the game. So ultimately, even though I lost the toss, Captain Mazik Bal decided to bat first, and understandably looking at the wicket. And as Elliot said, probably they were a slightly stronger batting side than a bowling side. So we got to do what we wanted to do anyway. So in theory, I won the toss, didn't I? So that's how I'm claiming that. Anyway.
No. In theory, you didn't win the toss. You kept up with what I've been told about you when I joined the club, that you were a massive tosser, and lost the toss.
Anyway, moving on. So yeah.
But Neil, can I just say about the wicket as well? Big praise to Mick Berry for producing a wicket. It was a very Undale-like wicket.
It was. It was.
And I must admit, when I saw it, I thought, have we prepared two with a wicket?
Mm. Yeah.
The ground in such a good condition. I can't remember, if ever, seeing it in as good condition. The wicket, the square, the outfield, it was all in such good condition. You couldn't believe it was the middle of September.
Exactly.
And bearing in mind the previous game against, I forgot who was it again? Withnell, that's right. Where the slightly sticky wicket, shall we say, really got to the heads of the opposition. I was expecting something more of that nature. And we got, I wouldn't say it was an absolute rock, but it was a decent wicket, and it did absolutely nothing wrong at all on Saturday.
No. But on that note, South Shore ended up 150 all out, and off, was it the last over? I think it was, wasn't it? Yes. Off the last
It was 40 overs, yeah. They worked all out.
They were 9, I think, yes.
They were 9
so,
down.
I mean, I said at half-time it felt like we were chasing maybe 20, 30 more than we should have been. But, as Elliot says, the pitch really wasn't a bad wicket, so 150 was probably about par score, if we're being completely honest. And I think that largely comes down, again, we're going over all ground a little bit, but the whole bowling performance was one of just really good, consistent, good bowling. The only time they really got away from us was in the last couple of overs, when they knew they had to get runs on the board. And okay, we bowled a couple of loose balls and they put them away for boundaries. And I think other than that, my overriding feeling was just, again, really consistent with the ball and straight, good lines, as was recounted by certainly the stars. Abdullah Kadba 3 for 30. Saheed Vahalawala 3 for 15 off 8 overs, which was superb, and Sid gets massive praise from me for the way he bowled. just those two alone, but the other guys as well, just really straight, consistent bowling, and we couldn't ask for any more, could we? Really?
Well, and not to forget to mention Imran, Ikram, and Sam, who did they take any wickets between them? Perhaps not, but they gave very, very, very few runs away.
Yeah.
And at one stage, you were thinking, let's keep these openers in because they were going at 1 and over.
Well, they only went over 2 and over. I think it was at the 36th over. Over 3 and over, sorry. Over 3 and over at the 36th over is when they accelerated. So it was just those last 4 overs. And, I mean, we really, at half-time, we really couldn't complain, could we, Dave?
No, I think probably you say those last handful of overs were slightly poor. Probably the only poor overs we've bowled all year, actually.
Yeah.
Like you say, yes, they were entitled to throw the bat at it to score quick and big runs. But I think we were perhaps put a little bit off by that as well, and started moving away from what had served us well through most of the season, the line and length discipline. And just to pick up, Sid's bowling, it's quite a comeback from Sid, given that at the start of the season he found himself out of the team, and to have come back the way he has, and had quite a starring role in the bowling lineup in the finals. It's quite a comeback story, really. So it was, ever so slight disappointments at chasing more than I think all of us thought we would, but certainly, as you say, certainly more than in the game at half time, chasing 151.
The one thing we're not going to mention for that first innings is Dominic's catch. We're definitely not going to mention that. Wasn't an easy.
It wasn't his catch.
Dominic's drop. Yeah, let's rephrase it. Yeah. Dolly comes to mind. Anyway, we're not mentioning that.
I hope he's got over it by now.
No, he hasn't, to be quite frank. But anyway, he can let that mull for a number of years. Anyway, it's at Wantley Dale. Everybody will bring it up. We remember things from 25 years ago, so it's going to get remembered for the next 20 years at least. Moving on to the batting, I think we've just got to highlight what a good job in general the batters who did well. I mean, Anis and Ikram opened and put a good, I think it was 40-odd opening partnership on, until Ikram unfortunately lost his head and played a very rash shot, really. And I was going to say very un-Ikram-like, but it was un-Ikram-like for how he'd started off. But 40-odd, good opening partnership, chasing 150, you're a third of the way there. So it got us off to a good start. It went downhill from there a little bit, in such that 3, 4 and 5, including 2 Harveys and a Shorrock, Harvey lookalike, all got ducks, which put us on the back foot a little bit.
Yeah, to coin a phrase from Mr. Alex Hines from earlier in the summer, the engine room turned into the panic room.
Yeah, that's a fair assumption, really.
Well, just from your perspective, Neil, I think all 3 were LBW decisions, weren't they?
No, Don was bowled.
Oh, right,
Don was bowled, me and Andy were LBWs,
Yeah. Any comments?
My own comment is I have no qualms about it. I got a feather inside edge, which I didn't, and I said that coming off, I didn't expect the umpire to hear it. I could just about feel it. So no, from my point of view, no qualms. I think Andy did. I mean, he did have a mark on his pad above the knee roll, and it was looking like it was. Maz turns it a long way to let, he's an off spinner, and it looked like it was heading that way, and it looked high as well. Listen, we got panel umpires on the day who did an absolutely terrific job, and it's one of them things.
I think they were consistent for both sides as well.
Absolutely,
because there were some decisions that LBW decisions that they were questioning as well, but I don't take any great issue with it.
No, absolutely. However, we can say that now anyway, because Imran came in and was promoted up the order and did a little job with Anis into building a little bit of a partnership. I think they put about 20 odd on. Imran then again played a bit of a rash shot, as a la Ikram. In fact, it was almost identical, which brought Sam Bolton to the crease. And Sam had let's say, despite a good knock at Darwin a few weeks ago, had lost a bit of confidence recently in his batting. Been bowling really well, but lost a lot of confidence, and he'd been asked to move down. So we're moving him down to 7, and the rest is history, as they say. Anis went on to get 81 not out. Sam ended up 30 not out in a partnership of 68, I think we got told. Match-winning partnership, and I've got to say, both of them. A lot of people said it was a very un-Anis-like innings, and I think it was. I think Anis knew the importance of him staying there to anchor the innings and just trying to get somebody to stay there with him, and thankfully Sam did that. And it was, I mean, Elliot, you've not experienced the Sam of old, Dave. It really was the Sam Bolton of old, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. It was. I know from sitting on the sidelines with him before he was going into bat, and as you say, it wasn't. I don't think he was overly looking forward to potentially having to bat, as you say, with a slight loss of confidence. But it was absolutely vital at that point when he came in with a score at around 90 for 5. The game was very much on a knife edge. It could have been, as it was, us going to victory without losing another wicket, or we could quite easily have been 110 all out, and lost quite convincingly. And it was very much Sam Bolton of old. It was a very watchful start, just nurdling ones and twos, and you could just see the confidence rising and building in him, and started playing more shots. And then by the end, we were seeing, some really nice boundaries from him. And he came off the pitch not quite sure what to make of it, but he should be very proud of his efforts, because it was that partnership was just completely vital. I mean, obviously, Anis will take all the credit for his 81, which was the match-winning innings, but as we've talked about with partnerships previously, you need 2 people in partnership, and Sam was very much as important as Anis in that partnership to see us across the line. It's absolutely vital.
It was a chanceless innings as well, if I remember rightly. I don't remember him giving anything away, and some glorious shots, some proper cricket shots.
It was quite surprising as well. They seemed to just gather momentum, and I remember looking at the scoreboard, and it was like 120 for 5, and I was thinking, we could do this. And then I remember looking again, and it was suddenly, oh bloody hell, it's 2 to win. Where's that coming from?
Well, I'm with you, but I always have the run rate, the runs required rate in my head. I must be autistic. I always have it there just to know what the stakes play is. And we needed 3.75 at the start. And we never really fell from that. But I always thought we were going to be taking it to the 38th, 39th over. And I hadn't realised until afterwards. We knocked them off in the 35th.
Yeah.
I hadn't realised that we'd accelerated quite as much as we had to get on with 5 overs to spare. But yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, what a time to regain your form. Could
I just take some credit for our match-winning performance as well? I like to think that I concentrated the minds of the middle order from the fact that I had to start going and putting some pads out of my bag. Just sort of like, it was almost like a warning to them that, don't let this happen.
I think in general, my overriding memory of it was going out when Sam had pulled a muscle or whatever, he was limping quite badly, and I went out and spoke to both of them, and Annie said, no, we've got this, we know what we've got to do. And Sam turned around and said, no, I don't want to run it, you'll have to drag me off with one leg still left. And I just trusted both of them at that point.
He said after the game as well that actually pulling a muscle in his leg actually helped him, because he said it just made him concentrate on the shots that he could play, because he was at the beginning he wasn't sure what shots to play, and he was perhaps getting a little bit confused in his own decision making. And he said actually having some shots taken away from him by this muscle pull actually focused his mind and helped him concentrate. So bizarrely, in some ways, it was a good thing that he pulled that muscle going for a run.
100%, and yeah, So it was a lovely moment, and we'd spoken to Captain Scott Newton from the first team before the game, and he'd said to me, just remember this. He said, a cup win will feel better than when we won the league in 2015 because it's a one-off. It's a special moment. The league win was over a course of a season. Yes, that moment when we won the league in that one match was special. He said, but this will feel better. And I've got to say, I completely agree with him. It did. It really did feel special because the relief just oozed out of me at that point. And I've got to say, it was almost like a bit of an anticlimax for me. It was like, I can relax now. It did feel a little bit like that. And it only sunk in really probably the day after. But yeah, just a great feeling. As me and Dave covered last week on the podcast, we've been so consistent from that second week of the season or whenever it was we started winning. And I think it was fitting that the bunch of lads generally that have played the majority of this season got us over the line. And it was just a really good, solid, again, everything that we've done this season, a good, solid, all-round performance with just contribution from people who potentially you didn't expect at times, but when somebody else didn't perform, somebody else stepped up. And yeah, it pretty much summed things up for this season. So, Wantleydale second team, Colin Dauber Cup winners 2020. Medals, bloody medals. We may not have got a cup. Well, we did get given a cup, which we had to hand straight back again. One of them things. But we got medals and we got a league representative down. So, no, it was good. It was really good. And, yeah, a really pleasant way to end the season. So, bit of silverware for Wantleydale. Who would have expected it? So, well done to the second.
Not after the defeat at Longbridge, you know.
Not after the defeat at Longbridge. We did not expect it then, no.
No, but I think the way the rest of the season went, that day was just a bad day at the office. Unfortunately, of course. But
and we have gone undefeated since then, of course, haven't we? Apart from the two rained off games.
Yeah. Not just unbeaten, Dave. I mean, we properly rolled teams over. Saturday was the closest game, and winning the game with 5 overs to spare, that isn't that close either.
No.
We've been superlative in every game bar the Longbridge game.
So there you go. Wantleydale have a cup winning side. Not said that for many years. We said it's the first piece of silverware the club's had since 2015. From a team perspective, we've had individual awards, but yeah, from a team perspective, and it felt good. So yeah, well done to everybody that performed. On that note, we're going to move on to just quickly looking at some of our highlights of the season. We will have a season wrap up, which we're going to have maybe over the next couple of weeks or so, and get some of the other players from the other teams in. But from us three now, we're just going to pull out maybe a couple each, briefly. No more than 10 minutes left, chaps. So we'll go through this quite quickly. A couple of highlights from the season, and I'm going to start off with the obvious: us winning on Saturday. As a captain, there's not much gets better than that. I've certainly not experienced that. I've never had a senior cup final. I've won a league. I've never won a cup. I don't think I've even won a junior cup, if I'm being quite honest. So it was a special feeling. And as we've said before, with a bunch of guys in general that I've played with for a long time, and a bunch of guys as a whole that we all get on really, really well. So that, again, as we discussed about the league win, that's a special thing. And if you can have that with a team, we all get on really well as a group. So it was really good. And to have the supporters down, the amount of supporters we had down, it was a pleasant day. It was the peak of the season. So that's my first one. My second highlight, I'm going to say, I hope you guys are going to be a little bit more individual in terms of performances maybe. My other highlight of the season has got to be the third team. I've experienced the third team a lot this year, whether it be umpiring or watching. And my highlight from that is just the way they've stuck at games. They've never let the head drops. I thought they would at times. They never did. So my second highlight is the stickability and the development and the efforts that the third team as a team have put in this year. So they're my two. Go on, Elliot, you can go next.
It's a bit like the Monty Python Spanish Inquisition sketch. This now, 2 highlights. I'm probably going to go 3 or 4. But just to echo that one, your last one there, Neil, I agree. I think one of my highlights was my first proper game for the club, and that was for the thirds at Maudsley, where Hamza turned up with minutes to go, runs on, tying his boots, just as we're about to start, and then throws down an absolute jaffer to dismiss the Maudsley opening batsman first ball.
That's a good one, actually. As an individual one, that's a good one.
Yeah, welcome to Walton Dale. Yeah, it was great to see. I mean, sadly, we didn't win that game, despite having put ourselves in a very strong position at one point. But that's the way it goes. And just to add on that note, I echo what you said about the strength of the third team. I think they were playing teams that were of a higher level than they will meet next year in Division 6, and I have every confidence that the third team, as it was this year, will perform remarkably well in Division 6 next year. I echo what you said on that one. And my other highlight, again, very personal, I suppose, wasn't to do with the game I played in. It was watching our first team beat Longridge. What was a very tight game, actually. And we'll not go into what happens afterwards, but I thought that was a really good performance, a really good game to watch, and that little additional frisson of excitement for me being a former Longridge player.
Excellent, good choice. Yeah. Because the first really dug deep in that one, so that was.
I think that was a must-win as well. It was a must-win game.
It was a must-win for them to get through to the next stage. Yeah. So good highlight that one, Elliot. Go on, Dave. Finish us off. Two good highlights to finish.
Well, I'm going to pick one from each of the teams, if I may. The first team, I think generally, it's been really good that the games that I've seen, there's been a real togetherness and positivity about them that perhaps there hasn't been for a couple of seasons, and I think that's down to Scott and Harry just having just providing good leadership and a good ethos in the team. The way, as you say, that the Longridge game, there was a real fight and desire to win that game, which saw them through. Particular highlight for me for the first team this year was actually being down at the ground for the White Coppers game, where Ryan took the team to an incredible total from the depths of 30 for 5 with his unbeaten century, and just some of the batting on display that in that innings, along with Naz, it was quite something to see. Second team, it'd be easy to say winning the cup, and of course that is the highlight. One particular thing I did enjoy was some of the grounds that we played at, in particular Darwin. Playing on a proper ground and some really nice facilities, and putting in a really good performance. And I think another small highlight from the seconds has been that I think in every game that we've played, really, we've come up against some really nice, friendly opponents. Yes, competitive. They've wanted to win, but all the games have been played in the right spirit, and I think everybody's appreciated the fact that we've just been able to get out there on the field, and it's been played in the right spirit, which has been great to see. But for me, the highlight has been one of the third team games, actually. The first ever victory for the third team at home against Croston, when it was a win by 1 wicket. We had 2 juniors there at the end who saw the team home. Juniors scoring the winning runs. What more can you want? What better highlight can you have for a club than 2 young players winning the game together? The first ever victory for that team. I don't think it gets better than that. That's probably my overall highlight of the year for the club.
Yeah, completely agree. Really good highlight to pull out, Dave, and it was one that went down well with everybody. A lot watching, and the third team were well delighted by that, and that's a really good point to pull. A really good point to finish with. Well done, DM. That's it for the season. We're not going to go away though. Up the Dale will continue. Lots of content to come over the winter. Hopefully some more interviews with pro players we have planned, and some interviews with other people who offer a different insight into cricket. So keep an eye out for that. And gentlemen, Elliot, thank you very much for joining us for this little end of season wrap up and look at that second team final. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Cheers, Al.
DM.
Come back to me next week if you want, but I will be in France. I don't know whether I've mentioned it.
Well, you can go and self-isolate in France. Happy days. Away you go. DM, thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure during the season, but we will plough on during the winter.
Yeah, indeed, Neil. It's been a good summer. Doing these podcasts with your good self, and hopefully, as we've said previously, that people have found them interesting, or at least mildly distracting from all that's been going on. And we'll be back soon.
Absolutely. So again, thanks go out to everybody watching. Thanks going to those who are supporters while we've been doing this. And keep an eye on socials. More to come. We will be back hopefully next week, where we've got to find something to talk about. I'm sure there'll be plenty of cricket still going on. So thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.